Balangata, Bantebabulawa, Kasefuoka, no Provincial, Lena, Patal. The Basemeleti, Bama Plasi, Baba Mani, Babulawe Kasefuo. Rina Nishanikota, Muna, Rebonta, Pupelo Mufoko, Dologamka, Abedinwa. And Meyer, Molega Hot, Regarding Hot. On behalf of the IPC, we greet the national leadership that is here, Comrade Matobo, the officials of the IPC, Comrade Cecile Dobega, will join us later, time permitting. Unale Museveti, Umuhulu, Wale Pato, Lava Semeleti Badi Plasi, Mato Gaiti, Bata Babea, Babel, Balo Pumotoa. Katila Gajenu, Meyer, Hano Valona, Honajwale, Imbahana Mera, Mera, Rena, Asa Titlem Seveti, Otavalabo. Remember that IPC, Beatapele, Makosatu, Modi, Mono, Provincial, the Bote Bauta Maremona, Reagabo, Tembarona, Beatapele, ICCP, Beatapele, Babu Mer, Men's League, Beatapele, Babacha, Barigeni Barehane, Bua Bariki Bonafera, Regini Yali Putua, back to me. Haileba, Regini, IRC, IPC, Barasaka, Wema, Affair, Beatapele, Provincial, Bacha, Beatapele, Basasco, Boata Babona, Bosaide, Bolopata, Deputy, President Jayabona, Fumana, Irufuku, Dafobahala, Begesa Tofi. Osase, the board about Balente, Maton, Uso, Beatapele Babona, Badiplo National Parliament, COP, Provincial Legislature, the whole Timoma are deployed in the level ones. The level to Melissa, the delegate Taronate Tuan Magali. We are Tala and Sebituarona. Me Amitala, Relugisa, Teo, Etamele, Utopisa, Pitela Tela, Motuemo Lemo, Yada Pisa, Otayemela, Musupua, Gio, Patole Malabo, Pelaga, Bua, Auna Montoya, Bua, Aputifati, Asoka Fuami, and now Bua. Abubeli, Ore, Makomenti, Magibatometa, Bahawa Bua, Batwelloita Sibenegera. Me Matafuanako, Ore, Tatote, Hone, Unificale. How is that again? I was going how we so far. Empire more, they cannot be able to Baba. Una naga di tadi to the Buena Fela. Loma ufema bande baba loma. Sega mamela lomo. Orega ufela lomo peisa. Retebe o sebele tala ko. Embabeta o sebele ti o petaiti. Me tote o ya kanako Afrika probleme yenu mutamacho musebeti kana kuyeno kana usita bayaka wale ere kitege mali Kenya mubeti ya pele item number 3 ya adoption ya agenda ya orere terete ore zamarangan to ite ya apology le role apology da isengele aweti item number 3 mine je go power de remove the speech ka item number 3 riskara ngana kutile yemezo molane to remove ngade ngade bati bangana profunction unale voice ndade manta there was also actually before to move back for adoption agenda for America while the car piece of my nation I just to move for the adoption of the agenda because now our things are also concerned is going to be very difficult for us for that community environment compatibility and doing the agenda. Number one is the organization, the organizational board of which I think if the PGC has to continue is that one. I don't know if I'm ready to take you. Régulièrement, c'est pour ça que tout le monde veut te recevoir Chemelati. Il y a une police conférence à on a discuté du document de la police conférence. Et là, PGC board of Mana State Organization, l'été autour du Bata. On a gagné le Mona, on a beaucoup avec la police, un document d'état, on a discussion document. Et regardez, on va misser par Kiri de l'état, l'ouest.
My name is Jeff Pumera. I move for adoption of agenda.
Thank you. Katiba ya ANC no kapoge Etatitwe Radmer agere batwa Yesu Makob Radmer Tangi Wale Atene Yabune. Yes.
In the interest of time, because actually a program when I was already and then the director when I guy around 7 in the evening. So because of this starting, Kinana will the proposition the presentation is then I can share. 20-10 minutes. They can go to about 2 hours and 10 minutes. So they get a proposition here already. How about these presentations? The at commissions. And then the delivery at commissions. Any other input at plenary. Each when I want to put one back on those
Amandla! 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 Kamrao consult, I hold the lady. Oyen ze lebele ketele zile kadile pina. Re a dumela na makhomore. Ina ya di presentations di tla etsuwa di commissioning me di commissioning a di khutla he ba tla re thusa ka mosebetsi wa bona jwalo. With this edition also agenda ya rona e adoptiwa kere re ka tswela pele no re tla tswela pele ka mantswe a mang di presentation a di no etsuwa mona kaofela di lo etsuwa ho di commission jwalo jwalo a re tsweleng pele makhomo. Comrade Mahlobo and all other members of the National Executive Committee, the officials of the IPC, members of the Interim Provincial Executive Committee, leadership of the 5 regions, leadership of the Youth, the Women's League and the Veterans League, the collective leadership of our branches, our leadership from COSATU, the SACP, our esteemed professionals and business community, comrades, delegates. In the last few months and years, quite a few vociferous voices in the media and elsewhere in our nation have sought to demonstrate why our organization, your organization, my organization, the African National Congress, by virtue of its electoral decline in the last decade and more, will slowly cease to be the majority government come 2024. These voices, often relying on the trends in our successive electoral performances in local, provincial, and national elections, have convinced themselves that their prophecies will materialize. The answer to these vexing and complex commentaries are by no means easy, comrades. We can either agree with these bleak predictions for the future of our organization and show reason why that is, or we can respectfully disagree with that gloomy diagnosis and equally show why we will back the trend and confound the doomsayers. Either way, the power lies within us. In other words, by our actions, we can start now and regard and treat our entire policy framework not as a sterile instrument whose mere memorization and regurgitation will lead to a better life for the people. We can decide that the first step, beginning today, is towards an ANC that lends, comrades, from its experiences, from its mistakes, from foibles, weaknesses, from its shortcomings and its limitations, and thus strive to improve on an ongoing basis the results of our policies and programs as a revolutionary movement that regularly seeks the approval of the electorate. What I'm trying to say here to all of us is, starting today, we've got to make a choice that we will use our social engagement in the social media to pull one another and each other down and undermine the ANC further in an effort of lifting ourselves up in the interest of our own factions. We have to make a decision, and that decision must be made by all of us. It is not the responsibility of any person, any individual in the ANC, but all of us. What comes first, the ANC or our selfish interest? If our selfish interest will take the center stage, then the doomsayers will have their field day. They will realize their predictions. But if we correct ourselves and move forward, we will change the direction that we are taking as an organization. Either way, as we say, comrades, the choice lies with all of us. We are gathered here to take stock of the 10 policy discussion documents that the National Executive Committee of our glorious movement, the ANC, launched in May this year, so that truly, as a strategic center of power, we can continue to strive for the privilege of the mantle of leader of society, a fount and a beacon of hope where there is no hope, a true tribune of the people. These attributes, comrades, will not be earned by means of revolutionary-sounding rhetoric, which is not a mirror reflection of the lived experiences of our people. So for our members who would want to believe things we say in such forums as this one as true, and by extension, our own supporters, many of whom seem unenthusiastic to cast their ballots every time there is an election. We must peel off every one of these challenges like the layer of an onion until we are certain what the underlying cause of the trust deficit is in word and in deed. We must, comrades, employ the simple philosophy of asking why 5 times so that we can get to the bottom of the cause of our troubles and challenges. When we ask why every time we encounter a challenge, we will ultimately arrive at a point where we establish with certainty as to what exactly causes our woes and set about to take corrective measures. When we conclude this PGC, we must appreciate that in order for our country to succeed, we must possess a sound macroeconomic policy framework that is underpinned by commensurate structural reforms. This past Thursday and Friday, our Free State government, led by the Premier Ntombela, convened experts, stakeholders, and partners at the Central University of Technology in Bloemfontein in exploring the prospects and benefits of the 4th Industrial Revolution Summit for the Free State. It is important that we identify the niche areas of our province and optimally exploit our comparative and competitive advantage in all economic endeavors that are aimed at achieving the objective of the Free State, that is free, safe, prosperous, and hard at work in oiling the machinery of our economic growth and development framework as envisaged in our National Development Plan, Vision 2030. We must unashamedly communicate our gains in such a way that we promote justice, social and economic development, and take such necessary measures as are capable of putting together the nuts and the bolts of our microeconomic framework in the Free State. And what in practice it is we must do to shape the architecture and trajectory of our economic institutions, the patterns of ownership and control, and the management of all these building blocks of a transformed economy. In this context, our support for the Department of Trade and Industry's Black Industrialist Program is principled and unwavering. This must be done in such a way that the form and the content of these interventions do not betray the principles and values of non-racialism, non-sexism, unity, and indivisibility of our beloved republic. We must be the first ones to raise our hands to say that the Free State will be joined at the hip with President Ramaphosa as our Chief Directing Officer and head of our government and state in suing for far-reaching reforms in taking our telecommunications, energy and water sectors to greater improvements and a higher level in supporting the competitiveness of our economy and reducing the cost of doing business. For our part as ANC branches, we must ask and answer the question whether there is insufficient legal room in our policy and legislative framework when our social infrastructure, such as waste, water treatment plants, water plants, street lights, power stations, substations, road signage, anti-crash barriers, traffic lights, clinics, schools, and other crucial infrastructure is ripped apart by criminal networks and consigned to the scrap heap of scrap metal waste collectors around our province and the country. What must we say about the ultimate destination of this scrap metal to countries in the east of Asia? What about tightening screws here at home to deprive those that thrive in this sabotage and destruction of our economy of their illicit, lucrative market? We must ask whether there is a gap in the legislative and policy framework to counter this insidious destruction and sabotage of our economy, or that the problem lies in the enforcement of the Second-Hand Goods Act and Precious Metals Act. We must further ask whether there is any link between an incomplete construction work at the Park Road Police Station in Bloemfontein, a closed police station in Ordnance Race, and dozens others that are short-staffed across our province, and the boldness of these criminal networks that vandalize and steal our precious social infrastructure. These are difficult questions that we must ask. We must ask ourselves where our structures are when community policing forums seem wobbly and inefficient in the midst of a climate of crime and lack of security in our communities. Not far from where we are, the Central Energy Fund has invested 1 billion in a gas project that runs from Virginia to Tennessee. All of the time, we must ask ourselves whether, outside of the special labor plans, communities that live cheek by jowl with this extractive can successfully have other downstream economic activities such as those in the circular economy, urban agriculture, green energy, smart and innovative building technologies, and more. This wonderment, analysis, and action-hungry intervention applies to Machabeng as much as it does to all of our municipalities, each one with its own characteristics. What is common among them all is that they display a state of decline with sections of populations that are willing and able to move to other areas, doing so with their feet, thereby leaving behind only a handful of the business sector and their employees, public servants, and multitude of indigents and recipients of social security grants. This picture is not pretty, and it must change soon for the people of Mangaung, Mohokare le Tsimeng, Tswelopele Kopano Mantsopa Setsoto, Tokologo Mafube Mokhaka Ngwathe Nketwane, Metsimaholo Maluta Phofung, Masilonyana Nala, Dihlabeng, you name them all. The question that arises immediately is whether we still need all these numerous local municipalities. And if we recommend their downsizing, are we not risking maintaining inequalities and uneven-handedness in service delivery and local economic stimulation? There are no easy answers, and yet we must remain seized with these difficult and complex questions to promote the unity and indivisibility of the Republic. All of the things I have said so far must be seen as part of a system that has related parts and yet viewed from different perspectives, with a view to constructing one whole ecosystem of a better life for all people, where non-racialism does not merely have a look and feel of kumbaya, but truly has all the ingredients of anti-racism, social cohesion, nation building, unity in diversity, tolerance, and a society whose psyche is expansive and strives to preserve the nation for the common good. That society is not one that merely wants to cheer on either side in the raging conflict between Russia and Ukraine, or be amused by talk of the manufacturing and acceleration of the intercontinental ballistic missiles and other weapons of mass destruction, but rather one that remains rooted in the clamor for peace and security in this time of sanctions and conflict. It is one that believes that the expansion of military alliances militate against peace and security in the world, and that the United Nations and the United Nations Security Council must be reformed. It is one that rejects out of hand calls by the former Prime Minister of Britain, Tony Blair, for Western leaders to keep the global geopolitical arrangement unipolar in a supposed checkmate of China. It is one that relentlessly pursues Agenda 2063 of the AU and Vision 2030 of our government. It is one that aims to silence the guns on our continent by 2063. It is one that shouts, "There shall be peace and friendship." Comrades, these going-ons in the world affect as much our balance of forces at home as they often do internationally. Therefore, when an ANC branch is hollow and weak, it is difficult to make a case for a developmental local government that is buttressed by public participation and a promise of social and economic development as the purport and objects of local government in our constitution. Section 152 of the Constitution, the objects are local government. And as a branch of ANC, a branch of ANC, or a role how ki when we also stand up and decree, and also as we complain about poor service delivery, Osheba white paper ya local government, part ya thing ibulela hore participation ya di communities tsa rona, the cornerstone ya local government, their developmental. So our people must be at the center ya development, at the center ya service delivery. Our people must be involved in the planning, in the implementation, in the monitoring, in the evaluation ya each and every project, in each and everything, the community in Zabo. We can't be ANC in our communities. When every time when things are not moving on, only structures is the image, and we are forced to counter as an organization. Repela guy, ANC yena otwing, ANC leaves. ANC leads. Ipela guy, leader guy. Harili di makomrade ka kgethuwa bo BC. Harili di ka kgethuwa bo di PC bo di RC bo national. Re leader ka diketso tsa rona mo re phela. ANC bonahala ka mekgwa ya rona mo re phela. ANC phela ka dipuo tsa rona. Batho ba bona ANC ka dipuo tsa rona. All of us have joined because ha re kgone ho ema re defend ndo tse etsahalang. Instead, we have chosen that easy path. Yawatega ANC, Liruna religion. It's so easy for members of the ANC, worse leaders of the ANC, who join in attacking the ANC when the ANC is under attack. ANC members must be at all times. Otlameile badule, batshwere di position tse correct tsa mokgatlo. Ba defend the position tse correct tsa mokgatlo. How yetsa seo ANC isaka ya Roma any person who sietsa. ANC has not sent any of you to steal. But all of us are named Amasela. We have not sent any one of you to go and lie. But all of us as ANC members, sibizwa maxoki. We can't defend Amaxoki, my comrade, in the name of the ANC. We can't defend Amasela in the name of the ANC. We can't defend abantu arrogant, abangafuni usebenza nomphakathi, and we say we are defending the unity of the ANC. We are actually destroying this unity as Tetangai. I-arrogance phakathi kwamaqabani yothusa. Arrogance ka roro na makomrade yathusa. When a comrade is elected in a position, was given a task, comrades banahana or all of a sudden there's a transformation in comrade unali knowledge usanali tsebo sa le bohlalo feta community. These are things that they rebolaya. Jokingly, I always say, comrade, how only dondololo, uli skolo, wahula uli dondololo, waipumana uli garabeta ba babeta pele ba ANC. Hai change bu dondololo ba how. You will remain dondololo up until you are prepared we tutor. And I always say to all of us, a leader of the ANC must be prepared all the time to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. Emungasala Toronto ka 1989. Uiswere position yenu hasa bata nix. Things have evolved, there are so many changes. But the comrade uiswere mo uiswere ndi. Dinto dia change kamona dia change, you don't change. Comrades, we are in a complex situation, a very difficult situation. Society is moving fast. Society is developing fast. People are now becoming more complex. Challenges of our society are becoming complex. But the Rona approach ya Rona is linear. Left, right, right, wrong, tall, short, cold, warm. The world does not work that way anymore. The world is complex. The leadership is stagnant. Usiwe ki society, leader society. ANC leaders were trapped in marking time. And the society is marching on. We have to make a choice as an organization where we want to be and what we want to achieve. We must always strive to be a better and improved ANC that exploits our great collective legacy to the maximum and emulate widely and constantly the great legacy of selflessness, service, and humanness, which attributes we inherited from our forebears. Equally, when we talk of social transformation, we must practically deal with each and every challenge and problem, be it individual or communal, so that our people are not fed mere ideas, but rather experience how our organization and government seek to enhance the people's quality of life. We will do this while acting in consent with the people themselves, from supporting and fielding the right candidates for the Progressive Youth Alliance during SRC elections at CUT, TVET colleges and NEOFs, to working in and with SGBs, community policing forums, clinic and ward committees, and strive to honestly communicate progress and challenges in delivering services and change our local economic landscape. We must ensure that all our councillors live up to the pledge they signed on, be accountable to the people and their organization, and to serve both with honesty, dedication, and discipline. We can never rest, comrades, as long as sewer spills into our yards and streets and rivers untreated. We can never be happy, comrades, as long as our municipalities are dysfunctional and yield disclaimers and qualified audit results. Whatever it takes, we must end this nightmare and restore the dignity of our people. We must unblock all blockages to unfinished housing and other social infrastructure projects. We must end the trust deficit and be at one with the people. Our sincerity and integrity, comrades, will be measured by the degree to which we never cease to meditate about these challenges until they are resolved. The recommendations we will make in the PGC for purposes of our policy conference and by extension the national conference are the sterner revolutionary stuff that must set us apart from all other parties in this province, as well as nationally. Not because we possess the monopoly of knowledge and wisdom, but because ours is a broad church that seeks out all who possesses talents and skills and want to change the social and material condition of this nation. I wish to call upon every single one of you to appreciate and understand that ours is a beautiful land and that the ANC and the ANC alone is capable of building a society that is truly non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous for all. We say it not with pride or arrogance, but with utmost humility that is nonetheless not without deliberateness, determinants, and the gist to succeed in our historic mission to end all legacy of apartheid. It is a land in which the rugby friends in Bloemfontein and Cape Town will turn up their singing of our national anthem, when they reach the destem part of it to demonstrate which stanzas they have affection for and appreciate the most. And in sharp contrast to the Bloemfontein and Cape Town ones, the fans of the same sport will sing all the stanzas with the same gusto in Pretoria. This represents who we are as South Africa. When others lose their heads, as these Bloemfontein and Cape Town rugby fans did, you as members of the ANC, who are drawn from communities that are hard hit by the legacy of apartheid colonialism, must hold fast to our flag, our anthem, our national coat of arms, our national animals, our proteas, our national orders, our national bird, the blue cray, and all manifestations of our rich culture, arts, and heritage, because all these confirm our national identity and make uniquely South African. We must do it even as some in our country appear uncivil and hunker the old order of apartheid, including one to resuscitate the old Firkliel fact. You must continue to sing all the stanzas of our national anthem with equal gusto and decorum. You must do it because it is a matter of principle of the path of unity and cohesion of our nation. Equally, we do not say this to hide or mask our own failures or turn the other cheek. Racist and bigots strike at the heart of our unity and diversity, or lies a pin to be walked upon. We say this because our failures will not define us, nor will racists and bigots detract and dissuade us from liberating the South Africans from the legacy of apartheid and colonialism. Black in general and Africans in particular. If anything, we are prepared to learn from all our foibles, shortcomings, limitations, and weaknesses because we are determined to execute the S-curve maneuver and become a learning organization with a shared value of economic growth, development, and prosperity for all free staters, for purposes of justification and mandate. My comrade, let us deliberate and consciously demonstrate our finesse, our savvy, creative, energetic drive to truly become the people of the birth of our glorious movement, the African National Congress, by playing our part in ideating about and effectuating plans towards the reconstruction and recovery plan that President Ramaphosa and our national leadership so much want to see take root and ripe. Nothing can stop us now, comrade. Amandla ngawethu. Comrades, as I sit down, allow me to call Comrade Mahlobo to make a presentation a national good.
Amandla bopha qabani amandla viva the ANC viva ANC viva wathinta abafazi roar the young lions roar qina msebenzi qina viva SSP viva viva COSATU viva viva SANCO viva viva the Progressive Youth Alliance viva. Thank you very much, Comrade Chair of the ANC, Comrade Dukwana, and thanks for the input. Comrade Nopala, Comrade Paseka Nompondo, Comrade Segala Nopala, Comrade Dielele, and the entire leadership of the IPC. The leadership of the party, led by Unopala, the leadership of COSATU, the leadership of the ANC Veterans League, the leadership of SANCO, the Women's League leadership, and the Youth League, and the leadership from our branches. Well, comrades, we want to join and thank the province that we were able to observe a moment of silence in honoring our mother, a leader, a revolutionary comrade DSG, Umama Ujesu Duat. But apart from that, there are many other people who have lost their lives, that there is a recognition. In the next few days, comrades, next week, on Friday, the ANC will hold its 6th National Policy Conference. And it's a very exciting moment that we are going to convene them in Nazareth as leaders of the ANC and members of the ANC across the length and breadth of our country to do a reflection as a movement and as people for the challenges that our country and our continent and the world they face. Those who will be coming in, their comrades, they must come and represent you well. We want comrades that are going to be sent in there, that are going to be very disciplined, no pal. Bangagcwali nje eJohannesburg kuthiwa baye emashop bahambe bohlala kuma caucus. We want people that are going to be disciplined, will be in plenary, people that are going to go to commissions, and people who will come in there to have read our policy proposals. But comrades who are going to articulate what needs to be done is going to be very important. But those are the same comrades that must come back to the branches and report about the outcome of the policy conference. But these are the same people that must know that when you go to the 55th National Conference in December, from the 16th to the 20th of December this year, they must be able to ensure that that national conference, it takes decisions that will take the ANC forward. With the few minutes that were given as National Executive Committee members, before you can go to your commissions, comrades, it's going to be important to share with you that since our inception, because the ANC is a product of the people, the struggle of our people, and the ANC was a choice that the people made when they came here in Free State, in Mangaung, that people, they wanted a vehicle, an instrument that they could be able to use to take their struggles to the next level. The struggles of the people never started with the ANC in 1912. And our people continue to be having socio-economic bondages. And this ANC National Conference that is going to sit, and the ANC Policy Conference, it must be a decisive moment. And it must be a shift that the ANC, it must reclaim its role as a leader of society. And if the ANC does not change and does not demonstrate in a practical effect, I agree with you, Comrade Dukwan, the people of South Africa are going to proceed without the ANC. Manje ngabantu enzobathumela lapha, Comrade Saki, eNazareth, ningathumela abantu abangena appreciation ukuthi i-ANC icinge ukuthi izawurula until Jesus come back. Incinga yokuthi nicinge ukuthi ni indispensable. Our people are going to march ahead. They will proceed. And you, as a current crop of this generation, you must make a choice ukuthi abantu bakithi bangaqhubeki ngaphandle kwenu. Therefore, that is one of the things that I thought we should remind comrades when you go there. Comrades, Our movement without a revolutionary theory, because any problem ekhona today in the ANC, we are not on the same page around the question of epochal development and the clarity ideological. The ANC, like all other organizations, they are informed by a theory of revolution. We normally discuss a document called Strategy and Tactics. And that document has always been discussed in plenary, where we are all there. And the reason why this document is being discussed is to ensure we are on the same page on how we see issues. And in Strategy and Tactics, we always call it is a collective view of the theory of our revolution. There has never been any revolution that has not been pursued without a theoretical outlook. Therefore, it is true when we say that without a theoretical revolution, there can be no real revolutionary movement. We must still ask ourselves, do we still qualify to be called a revolutionary movement? You need to have an opportunity when you go to your commission, in as much as the strategy and tactics will not be presented in full next week, but another element will be presented called the balance of forces. The ANC must appreciate, and the people of South Africa, that we live in a global environment. We are interconnected, we are interrelated. Therefore, it is going to be important that all revolutionaries, in their quest to prosecute the national democratic revolution, you must analyze the global and domestic balance of forces. When you do the analysis of this balance of forces, you must ask two questions. How does this domestic and global balance of forces assist us, one, to facilitate and accelerate and advance the national democratic revolution to achieve the national democratic society? But at the very same time, we must also use our ability to analyze, our tools of analysis, and say the global and domestic balance of forces, how are they hindering, negatively affecting our ability to prosecute the national democratic revolution? Manje ke ucomrade ongayenzi i-balance of forces a-analyze, uyamuzwa nale input yakhe ukuthi ayinayo le ability that it is informed by a particular theory of a revolution. And it's going to be important that even when you engage on some of those solutions, you look at those particular issues. Comrades, when the National Policy Conference rises towards the national conference, we must be able to come up with medium and long-term tasks that are facing our movement, but are also facing our nation at large. Uyabona ke comrades, niyakuleya conference, board policy and national. Abantu bakithi, they are not in a good space. The condition in which our people find themselves, they are feeling the pinch like yesterday. They don't know whether tomorrow they will have the assets, whether tomorrow they will have a roof, so that their children, during this cold winter, they don't know whether they will be able to send the kids to school. They don't know whether they will be able to actually care for the sick. And those who go in there, they must come there prepared. They must be able to say, in the short, medium term, and long term, these are the bold actions that we must take to change the course of our people for the better. The other point that I thought I should raise is that, comrades, over the last 28 years, our movement and as a nation, we've done well in rebuilding our country, from the ruins of apartheid and colonialism, we've done well. There is no government that has done like us, but we've made mistakes. Our mistakes are being seen by people. We must also know that while our mistakes are being seen by people, there are challenges that we're facing currently at a global level in terms of the global environment. And there are actually contradictions that you see even in the global environment and the impact on human development. Remember, all organizations, they exist to serve humanity. And humanity can only be served by ensuring that there is a better life for all. Our lives actually, they improve. But comrades, we must appreciate that neoliberal capitalism is in crisis. Capitalism has failed and is causing more problems. Because in a capitalist society, it's a dog-eat-dog situation. It's a survival of the fittest. And if we are not actually strong, either social or economical, you will not be able to survive. And the majority of our people are on the receiving end. Comrades, you are convening today here. There are a number of crises that we see, both here at home and abroad. Ama crises that we see, comrade, they have started to make people to say, we're on our own. We're on our own. These leaders, they don't care. This ANC doesn't care. Even the ANC members themselves, they say so. Even the ANC leaders, they say so. Well, comrades, there is nothing wrong to be self-critical, but be critical of the ANC within the platforms that are provided. Uma senihamba nitshela bonke abantu nina ni leadership uthi nihlulekile. Where should they actually get their hope? Because the dreams and aspirations of our people, they are in your hands. Ama leaders the ANC ke comrade Dukwane nawe comrade Nompondo. Abanqeni nje ukuthi bame kwi platform basho ukuthi ANC how ugly it looks. Even if the more you say to yourselves as leadership and as members, bazothina abantu, but indeed these criminals, they failed. Do you know what's happening in South Africa and global? Illegitimacy. There is a decline in legitimacy on the political and business elites. Awuyabona nje mababona politician babona isigebengu umuntu ozontshontsha. Mababona umuntu on a business, we see a criminal. Do you know that people are even starting to lose hope because of the things we say and prophesize? That even democracy is not working. Let's never create doubt on our people. But the ANC must correct. And it must self-correct now. There are a number of issues that we have caused. There is an inability to address the fundamental questions of socio-economic inequality. Sike sahlala ke si-ANC for 3 days. Bekunodukwane no Comrade Nompondo. After 3 days, we spend more time discussing ourselves and not discussing the condition in which our people find themselves. We like looking ourselves in a mirror, how ugly or beautiful we look. Now we have forgotten that our only existence is at the mercy and then the decision of our people. Uzobona nje nizoya kuma commission nizobe nikhuluma. Ngeke nikhulume nje ukuthi how do we stop crime? We are not going to discuss how do we bring water. We are not going to discuss how do we actually get the economy to work. No, we are going to be discussing each other. More internally focused. Well, we need an ANC that is vibrant, renewed, united. But the people of South Africa, if we are preoccupied with ourselves, they have no option. they will create another vehicle to pursue their struggle for total emancipation around socio-economic bondage. Bazondlula abantu. Uyabona ke uma ihlala i-Congress of the People in Kliptown in 1955, President General of the ANC was not there, Ubaba Ulthuli. Wathi ke umethumeli message wasethi ke, let my people go. A-revolution, comrade, to liberate yourself is in the hands of the people. It's not in the hands of political parties. Ama-political party agcina abe drunk, abe arrogant. They see self-importance on the issues of the basis that they have power. Nations, they proceed. Then there's an emergence of some funny leaders like you see in the world. And in South Africa, we run that risk. We have done mismanagement. There are issues that we must also know that we are at a risk, like the entire globe is at a risk. There are some few issues that when you go to commission, you should know around the global balance of forces. One, you are currently in a state where the world was engulfed by COVID-19. COVID-19 remains, not here at home, but globally, is one of the important issues when you go to the policy conference. We know that in South Africa, we have made a decision, Comrade Tukwana, ukuthi we have taken away all the regulations, angisho. And Umam Nkosazana was correct when she said, Umam Jesse said, COVID-19 does not know that now we have made decision that we should not wear masks. Izawuqhubeka nje COVID-19. Because if our behavior doesn't change, there's going to be a fifth wave, and more people are going to die. But globally, we must know that COVID-19 remains. It has caused economic and societal consequences, and it has put our world on a threat. The issues of vaccine, especially inequity, continue. The issues of uneven economic recovery, they continue. And the issues of geopolitical outlook, it looks very dim. When you convene in Nasrec, please remember the poor and the downtrodden, especially from our continent, they continue to be the most affected by the ongoing situation. The ANC must be always on the side of the poor and the vulnerable. Uma nenza ama-decisions, comrade, nicabange those who can't stand up for themselves. We must know COVID-19 will be felt beyond 2022. The economy is going to grow in China because they are doing well on how they are managing certain issues. The economy of the US will also grow, but less than that one of China. But what is more important, comrades, there's going to be a widening gap globally in terms of income gap, and inequality is going to exacerbate. Secondly, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. That is being led by the US, NATO, and the EU. It has been actually at the center. The harsh sanctions that have been given against Russia, they've put strain on global supply chain, especially the energy sector. We are wondering if you think the war is happening in Russia and Ukraine, you can feel it here. Many, many thousands of kilometers away from them. The fuel prices is up, the cost of living is up, all the supply chains, whether it is food security, it has been disrupted. This Russian-Ukraine conflict, comrades, is adding up to the already constrained global economic environment, including the plans of trying to get the economy to recover. Asakwazi ukurecover the way we thought we'll recover, comrades. It's one crisis after the other one. And governments and our movement must be able to respond. Comrades, we need to be able to assess the global balance of forces and the shifting dynamics, power dynamics, because they remain a critical part of the strategy and tactics. We must be able to understand that there is a global power reconfiguration, comrade. The world is not going to be the same. After COVID-19, after the Ukraine-Russian conflict, the world is no longer going to look the same. And how are we going to respond as people and as an organization? Geopolitically, there are tensions, comrades. After the Cold War, comrades, that some people thought it has actually stopped, the US never stopped to try to dominate us. What they did, they developed their own foreign policy. They also developed a national security strategy. In their own foreign policy and security strategy, it was developed by one assistant minister or deputy minister of defense during the time of George Bush. That guy was called Wolfowitz, Dr. Wolfowitz, and it's a doctrine, it's called Wolfowitz Doctrine. At the center of the policy, it says, comrade, the Americans will do whatever it takes to prevent re-emergence of a new rival. Kushutama Americans, they will never tolerate any big power. In other words, the dominant consideration is that the new regional defense strategy, and it requires that the Americans will prevent any hostile power from dominating a region, and whose resources would, under a consolidated control, be sufficient to generate a global power. In other words, this decision by the American will include the region of Western Europe, East Asia, the territory of former Soviet Union, and the South Asia. And the Americans, to achieve this thing, comrades, there were three things that they were going to do. One, the US will show leadership necessary to establish and protect a new order that holds the promise of convincing potential competitors that they need not to aspire to a greater role or pursue a more aggressive posture to protect their legitimate interest. In other words, when you try to raise your head, the Americans must create fear and intimidation, that no country and no region must try to challenge its dominance. Number two, the non-defense areas, they must account sufficiently for the interest of the advanced industrial nation to discourage them from challenging our leadership or seeking to overturn the established political and economic order. We are in a war, comrades. Americans, they've made a choice that for the economic order where they dominate, it must proceed. Lastly, the Americans agreed that they will maintain the mechanism for deterring potential competitors from even aspiring to a larger regional global player. Comrades, how will the US do these things, comrades? To avoid that there should be no emergence of a new power bloc. There are 4 points that the United States took decisions. One, they will maintain NATO after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact. Number two, they will expand by admitting into their own ranks erstwhile Warsaw Pact member states, as well as former republics of the Soviet Union. Uma ucheka, Finland and Sweden, they want to join NATO. Even the Turkish that were a little bit worried, they agree now that they can join. The third point is to ensure that if it is possible, It must also include countries immediately bordering Russia. I'm sure that agreement was saying that NATO must never expand even an inch. But then these guys, because they want to intimidate the Russians, they said, no, everybody can join, it's their right to join. The last point, they must intimidate Russia so that Russia should understand it cannot and it must not compete with the US as a rival power. This is where we are global. Ama-Russians now, niyabazi labantu Putin. And you know the First World War and the Second World, they had to respond. Then the Russians, they started to feel that these guys are moving. They are becoming too closer into our own kitchen. The Russians started talking to the US. Then the Russians started to speak to the EU. They started speaking to NATO. Then they started to make their own demands. Russia made 5 demands. One of the demands they made, NATO must stop its eastward expansion. That's demand number 1. Number 2, it should abandon all attempts to place itself on the very borders of Russia. Number 3, there should be a negotiated new European security agreement to address the security concern of all European countries, including Russia. Number 4, all aspiration by anybody to maintain a unipolar world should be abandoned and all a multipolar international order. Lastly, there must be an entrenched multilateral system of global governance based on international law, as well as the UN Charter and the rejection of unilateralism. That's what they put on the table. Guess what? The Americans, European Union, even NATO, they responded on these demands. After they responded on the demands, their response was threefold. That it was the right of all countries, including those closer to Russia, like Ukraine and Georgia, to decide how they wish to address their security concern. Number 2, it is therefore their right to apply to join to NATO. Lastly, the doors of NATO were open to all to admit any country which will voluntarily sought to join the organization. That's what caused the war, comrades. Because these countries, they just never woke up one day. In Ukraine, unfortunately, it's just a proxy. And the people of Ukraine are suffering dearly. No longer the people of Ukraine were all suffering because of an arrogance of one power that no other country must rise. Then the Russians, they had no option. They started attacking there. And when they started to attack, more sanctions were placed. The issues of supply chain were disrupted, comrades. Well, where's Doc, the Veterans League? Ubaba uflaqashe khona. Kunento engizoyisho la, ningayirepeat la ngaphandle. Comrade Doc. Was the response of the ANC and government correct? Would have Madiba responded the same? Uyabona ke comrades, uma sithathe ama positions. ANC, it was right, but it was also wrong. ANC is right to call for the cessation of hostilities. ANC is correct to say for any conflict, it must be resolved through peace and negotiations. But the ANC, it can't be silenced when men and women are killed, even when they are killed by our friends. Any suppression and suffering of people irrespective anywhere in the world, whether ideologically siyavumelana nabo noma sivumelani. But the government was correct.